Hi, Kaylin. Time for another bedtime story. Again, it's coming from the Christmasaurus. And we're on chapter 8. Now, if you remember, in the last story that we read about Christmasaurus, we met Brenda Payne, who was the meanest girl in the world, possibly. And in that story, she got all of her lunch all over her head, and it was frightfully funny. It would have been very embarrassing. So I wonder what's going to happen in this chapter. So, get comfy. As always, me and Pikachu are here, together. Cuddle up, and let's read the story. Chapter 8. Wheelie William. Life for William changed after that day. It happened slowly at first, just little things. He'd noticed that some of his friends stopped offering to wheel him up the ramp into school in the morning, and no one would help him pick up his pencil when it dropped on the floor and rolled out of reach. Then, as the weeks went by, no one would sit with him at lunchtime. Whatever table he'd wheel himself to would quickly empty, and he'd have to eat his sloppy school dinner alone. And so he found that he had become what is commonly known as a loner. Billy No Mate, the weirdo with the wheels, and it was all down to Brenda. As I'm sure you could imagine, this made William very sad. He used to be so popular, but now all the other normal kids in the school with normal legs would call him names like Wheelie William or William. That's a good one. One particular nasty person, Brenda Payne of course, went that one step further and made up a little song that went something like this. Wheelie William can't walk around, Wheelie William just rolls along the ground. He can't kick a ball, he can't run fast, he can't play with us, he just rolls on past. Wheelie William goes whizzing down the street, Wheelie William has rocks for feet. He can't climb trees, he doesn't walk, Wheelie William wheel away, he don't want to talk. Wheelie William sitting on a chair, Wheelie William rolls everywhere. He can't do jumps, he can't even stand. To go upstairs he uses a ramp. Such a nasty song. It wasn't long before Brenda's nastiness had infected the whole school, like a disease that turned everyone into William-hating zombies. She'd bullied herself an army of William haters. The children who used to be his friends now treated him like he wasn't one of them anymore, like he didn't belong there, like he was smelly or something. The thing about Brenda was that she wasn't like most bullies. Most bullies are stupid, jealous, jelly brains, but not Brenda Payne. Brenda was as smart as she was pretty, and she used both of those things to get whatever she wanted. She wasn't the strongest kid in the playground. In fact, there were plenty of children who could have easily knocked her perfect teeth out if they wanted to. But Brenda had a way of making those kids not want to do it. She didn't need to punch kids to steal things, although she did both of those things with regularly. Because if she wanted, she could bully you with just a look. She only needed to glance at William, and it sent shivers running through him, which made him feel completely and utterly pathetic. Since that day, William had accidentally rolled over her food. It was as if making his life hell had become Brenda's only purpose in life. She would sneak up behind him during class and stick pins into his wheelchair tires so that they went flat. As winter settled in, she started coming to school an hour early to pour water on the wheelchair ramp so that by the time William arrived, it was covered in solid ice, and he couldn't get up it at all, meaning the teachers had to lift him up the stairs. Completely humiliating. But Brenda Payne's speciality was her throw. Of course, William had known exactly how face-smashingly accurate Brenda's throw was Since her first day at school, when she had lunch, she launched a handful of horrible slop at his head. She had an expert aim and could hit her target from an impressive distance. She'd use her skill to hurl sticks like javelins from the far side of the playground straight into the spokes of William's wheels. That is an excellent aim. And they'd jam the wheels so suddenly that his wheelchair would stop, but William wouldn't. He'd carry on going, bouncing along the ground on his bottom to the sound of laughter from Brenda Payne's army of pain. That's the name William gave them, his old friends. After that happened 5 times, William had a seatbelt fitted to his wheelchair, so at least he wouldn't fall out. Before, William used to happily slip out of bed into his wheelchair and whiz off to school, but those days were gone. Now he'd wake up, look at his chair, sigh a deeply miserable sigh, and think to himself, what rotten thing is she going to do to me today? But of all the rotten things that Brenda did to William, the worst was still to come on one snowy Friday afternoon at the beginning of December. The very day the Christmasaurus was feeling glum far away in the North Pole, in fact. She didn't use sticks or pins. She used the most powerful weapon of all, words. Their teacher, Miss Dribblepot, had just popped out to the loo, and as Brenda never missed an opportunity to make William's life miserable, as soon as the door clicked shut, a shiny black stapler flew across the classroom straight at William's head. William tried to block it with his exercise book, but the force of the throw was so strong that the book smacked him straight to the face, and the stapler stapled it to his forehead. The noise that followed sounded like a laughter bomb exploding in the classroom. That's when William felt it happening. He couldn't stop it. The worst thing possible. He began to cry. "Are you crying?" asked Brenda with a huge, evil smile expanding across her pretty face. "No," lied William, quickly wiping the tears from his cheeks and plucking the stapler out of his forehead. "You are, aren't you? Wheelie's crying, everyone. Look," Brenda called out, and the laughter level doubled. It wasn't that anyone actually found it funny. It was because they were scared not to laugh. cry, baby," Brenda chanted. "Why don't you go crying to your mummy?" The whole room suddenly fell silent. Whispers of, "Brenda doesn't know," quickly circled the classroom. "Know what?" Brenda demanded. "He doesn't have a mum," called out Freddie, the tallest kid in the class, from the back of the room. "You don't have a mum?" asked Brenda. "He lives with his dad," yelled Lola, one of William's pre-Brenda friends. Brenda paused for a moment, then the smile grew back. "Well, it's your dad I feel sorry for," she said casually, twiddling a pencil around in her perfectly twirly hair. "I mean, can you imagine having to live with Wheelie William? It's hard enough going to school with him. It must be so difficult for your poor old daddy pushing you around everywhere on his own. You must feel like such a lump of uselessness. I know I would if I were like you. Thank goodness I'm not." William bit his lip hard, trying to stop himself from shouting something back, something horrible. He knew only tears would come if he tried. "And I'm not surprised your dad looks so lonely all the time. He's the lonely one who wears those awful Christmas jumpers all year round, right? I bet he still believes in Santa like a little baby. I mean, who on earth would ever marry him? Christmas jumpers and Wheelie William. Who would ever want to be your mum?" With those final, awful words, she stretched her legs out and gave a pretend yawn. The stunned silence was only broken by Miss Dribblepot returning from the loo. That afternoon, when the school bell rang out, it was time to go home. William couldn't help hearing Brenda's words over and over again and again in his head. He looked out through the front of the gate of the school and saw mums and dads waiting happily as their children skipped across the playground towards them. Then he saw his dad, his tired-looking dad. Mr. Trundle was standing alone to one side of the school gate, wearing his favourite Christmas jumper. He'd knitted it himself, whilst all the other parents were nattering away in a big group. As William wheeled closer, he heard them saying things like, "Great pot roast the other night, Jackie. Looking forward to the Christmas party, Pete? I'll see you for the run tomorrow morning, Jenny." William looked from one happy family to another, and a strange feeling swirled around in his stomach, like water going down a plug hole. The feeling was emptiness. He'd never noticed it before, but now that he felt it, it was almost certain that it had always been there. "Hello, son," Mr. Trundle said with a smile. But William was so full of his newfound emptiness that he just wheeled past Mr. Trundle and didn't say a word. Was Brenda right? Was Mr. Trundle really lonely? Why wasn't he friends with any of the other parents? William couldn't remember the last time Mr. Trundle had gone to a party or out for a walk, or even had a cup of coffee with anyone. Why had he never married again? After William's mother died, lots of kids in William's class had stepmothers and stepfathers. Was it all because William was the way he was? Would anyone ever want to be a mother to a boy like him? William had never felt so different, so lonely, so guilty. Brenda had planted those awful words like a rotten seed in William's brain, and they were beginning to grow into a rotten thought. Thoughts that Brenda was about to spectacularly interrupt. And that's the end of that chapter. That was a really sad chapter. I hope William's okay. I hope he has a happier story going forward, because that was very nasty what Brenda Payne said to him. I hope you wouldn't say anything like that to someone. Okay, time to go to bed, cuddle up and go to sleep. Night night.